So take us through, when in orthopedics did you realize, wait a minute, plastic surgery?
Probably my third year I did.
Was it on my rotation?
Do you want me to be honest? Do you want me to sugarcoat it, Craig, or do you want me to shoot straight with you?
Shoot straight.
After rotating with you, I wanted to go to
Do
law
something
school.
else. Welcome to Under the Knife, the podcast where we cut into topics such as politics, life advice, and medicine, and we do this with the precision of a licensed orthopedic surgeon. I'm your host, Dr. Craig Green, an orthopedic surgeon and elected public official. Okay, let's talk about your brain. So,
well, the human head weighs 8 pounds. Mine weighs 8.5.
8.5. So, how did you know you wanted to be a doctor? How did you, and orthopedic surgeon, then plastic surgeon? And take us through the decision to be a doctor, how you chose orthopedics, and when you decided plastics.
Yeah. And I think this story is one less of a master plan and more of I just kept stepping into different puddles and falling into where I think I ended up. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. My entire family is in law, just about. And so I liked the idea of environmental law. So I broke the rules. I grew up in Lafayette. I went to the University of Alabama for college.
I think if you can't get into LSU, it's a great school to go to.
Well, I tell people I already knew how to read, and so I could have tested out of most diplomas in the state. So I go to Alabama at a time when there was much less hate, Craig.
Between LSU and Alabama?
Yes. Saban had not spoiled and just
was it Shula time?
ruined. Yeah, it was the dark ages for Bama football.
Yeah.
I mean, we were terrible. I think my freshman year was the last bowl game that they made, and then my sophomore, junior, senior, we went through a bunch of coaches.
So you graduated Alabama what year?
99.
Okay.
So I go to Alabama. I am going to major in biology. I like science. I think people either have a scientific brain or not, and I did. And I took a job my first summer after college. I came back to Lafayette, and I got a job in the emergency room because there was air conditioner, and I heard that they paid fairly well. So I start working in the ER.
That's not boring.
No, it was. Every day was amazing, and I took 2 classes at USL at the time, which is now UL. So I worked the graveyard shift. I went in at 7. I left at 7 a.m. and my first class was at 8. Second class was at 9, and I slept. I wasn't awake for 4 minutes in each class. They would have to wake me up, and then I would walk to my next one. But I don't know why I mentioned that.
So the ER, you were still pre-law when you did the ER shift.
I was pre-law, but biology major. I go to the ER. It's fantastic, and I'll never forget the ER manager says, "Would you like to watch a surgery?" And I said, "Absolutely." He said, "All right, I set it up. There's a cardiac surgeon who's going to be doing a big operation, Charles Bustani."
No kidding.
And so he, super nice, he puts a stool up by the anesthesia machine. So I am looking down
at heart surgery. At a heart,
like that's a big one to watch for your first one, because it is knife, saw, and they said, "Look, if you have to fall backwards. Not into the chest." Yeah. And I went home. I don't think I slept that night. I was like, wow.
What in the world
is that possible that you can cut somebody open, fix it, and close them up?
So you pivoted from law to medicine that night.
Absolutely. I was like, okay, I'm going to be a doctor.
All right. So then take us to how you picked orthopedics.
It was a struggle. It was indecision at every step.
Really?
My fourth year, for the non-medical people, you don't know that there's a lot of specialties that you don't get any exposure to. Yeah. So I'm going through my third year of med school, and I was the kind of guy that I did OBGYN first, and I said, I'm going to be an OBGYN. Then I did.
You liked it all?
I liked it. I did pediatrics next, and I said, I'm never going to do that. Then I kept coming back to surgical specialties, but I really didn't want to be dealing with life and death. I didn't like that part of it, and it felt like every rotation I did, for example, my first internal medicine rotation, first patient I get has hepatorenal syndrome, and so I have to nurse this woman into her death. Didn't like that. I go to vascular surgery, and we have a terrible aortic aneurysm, patient dies, and I remember going with my chief resident for him to watch him deliver the news to the family. And I thought, okay, I'm scratching this one off the list. I would rather deliver happy news. And so I kind of picked a specialty where there are fixable problems, there's motivated patients, patients of all age, but specifically the healthier ones. And that's why I liked orthopedics. Yeah.
So take us through when in orthopedics did you realize, wait a minute, plastic surgery?
Probably my third year I did.
Was it on my rotation?
Do you want me to be honest? Do you want me to sugarcoat it, Craig, or do you want me to shoot straight with you?
Shoot straight.
After rotating with you, I wanted to go to law
something
school. Else. Let's see. So I got Dr. Ronnie Matthews, my man.
Golden.
I'm a second-year resident, and I did a bunch of hand surgery with that guru, and I thought, man,
this is my thing.
This is cool. I like sewing little things together. And flash forward, I'm a fourth-year resident. We have a patient that needs a free flap, a tissue transfer to cover a bad leg open fracture, and the plastic surgery fellow wasn't available. Couldn't come to whatever hospital we were operating, and so I helped the chairman of the residency director of plastic surgery do this microvascular procedure.
Which means you did the whole thing, probably.
Man, he let me do a lot, and so I said, okay, this is what I want to do. And he said, Taylor, don't do just hand. Do plastic surgery. You can do all the hand you want and the micro, and here we are.
So let's unpack this a little bit. So your practice now, you cure cancer.
Well,
sort of.
I try to we try to put women back together who have been their lives have been disrupted by breast cancer.
And it's a huge part of their psyche, right?
Absolutely.
But where I'm going with this, and then the other part of it is you try to make pretty people prettier in their own mind, right?
I do. I think maybe I'm a fixer at nature, and I want to have a problem and be able to tell somebody that I can meet your expectations.
So speaking of, what happiness equals reality minus expectations. I know in my practice, I spend a lot of time just adjusting people's expectations.
Totally. Craig, with the Instagram age, people, women especially, younger women, think that that's just
normal.
That's the median.
Yeah.
And it's not. You take those people and you take the filters off and you bring them to reality, and they don't look like that.
Well, I'll never forget there was shooting a movie in town, and somebody hurt their knee, so the producer called and said, "Can you see him?" This person was gorgeous, been on the cover of magazines, prominent actress. So they brought her in, walked her through the back door, and she was in sweatpants and no makeup. And I'm like, there's no way that this is that. And I mentioned it to the producer a couple nights later at dinner, and the lady said, yeah, she's the most beautiful woman in the world after 8 hours of hair and makeup.
Hopefully these cameras are doing something to us. And I did not see the makeup lady. Is she not? She's off today.
Yeah. Damn it. They're done. No, so... the analogy I use is let's say I take care of a baseball player and they hurt their shoulder. And they throw 90, but they want to throw 95. Well, they're disappointed if they don't go to 95, as if a surgery can produce an increase in miles per hour.
Right.
And I did a lot of trauma, so let's say somebody got in a car accident and we saved their leg. They're just glad to still have a leg. And the expectation gap on the pitcher is far greater, even though it's like, hey, you want to talk to the guy who got his leg cut off? And so how does your mind go back and forth between prettier and these people are just glad they're alive?
Well, it's an absolute evolution, and I'll tell you, people wouldn't want to hear this, but it probably takes 10 years of practice to figure out the most important thing, and that is who to operate on. When you get out, exactly. When you get out, you just want somebody to walk in your door, and you're going to try to do everything you can. I have had many patients that the more honest I am with them, the better it turns out to be. I have so many that early on I would say, look, this isn't a weight loss operation. You don't need a tummy tuck right now. You need diet and exercise.
Do you want a straight shoot?
And I have so many that are mad at me that day, but then they come back in 6 months or a year and they've changed their lives, and now I'm cutting off skin and everybody's happy. So learning who who to operate on.
But that also means you've continued to learn.
Yeah, well, that obviously, right?
But we're around people that don't.
Yeah, no, they call it practice, and there's jokes about that. But really, I don't know if my technical skills have changed all that much, but treating people between the ears is probably one of the bigger things you can do, even in plastic surgery.
It's all super tutorial.
One of my partners has a good saying. He said, we're all psychiatrists with a 10-cent scalpel. And I like to think we're maybe a little more than that, but that's pretty close.
Yeah, it's not far off.
No.
Let's switch gears. I know you read a lot. What are you reading right now?
I am reading Truman, a book on Harry Truman. I've gotten into, again, I never thought I'd be in this place, but I like nonfiction. Mm-hmm. And as a kid that fought history all throughout grade school and high school, now I find it fascinating. Yeah. If I could go back in time and have an interesting history teacher where they just pulled out the interesting, fascinating points of it, I'd learn it.
Well, and think about it, storytelling.
And it's remarkable how humans repeat behaviors and how predictable we really are.
So what is your takeaway so far from Truman?
I think it's made me want to get to know presidents, because I know minimal about politics. It's fascinating to me, and that time period is really more interesting than now.
Have you gotten to the Enola Gay yet?
No.
Have you seen Oppenheimer?
No. I want to see that one though. But I like, so historical nonfiction is really good, and then I love autobiographies. The Mike Tyson one is
really
phenomenal.
What are your takeaways there? I saw something recently where he finished boxing. He was $65 million in debt, and now he's worth $400 million.
Yeah, pretty much a movie. I mean, The Hangover turned his career around.
Really?
Isn't that nuts?
That's crazy.
But that guy is the epitome of burning it fast and bright, because he went through what he would spend on landscaping is what some countries' GDP is.
Well, you wonder if Floyd Mayweather's not far behind him.
Yeah, he's close. He's a little Tyson Jr.
Well, so if you like that, I'd like to suggest Walter Isaacson. He wrote Einstein, Da Vinci.
Einstein is in my queue.
It is good.
It's the next one.
Steve Jobs, The Innovators, and his book called Elon comes out in about a month.
I find that you can get home after a long day of work, and you can throw on the TV. You can kiss your wife, have dinner maybe with your kids, and then throw on the TV, and then 2 days later, what did you watch?
Mindless.
It's kind of a waste of time. Or you can lay in bed, read a book. It either does one of two things. It's fascinating and you love it, or it puts you to sleep. And win-win situation.
Right.
And so you kind of have been a big push. Now I don't listen to music in the car. I listen to audiobooks. I read when I get home, and reading makes you want to read more, and it makes you a more interesting person. So,
well, keep the queue, the reading queue. I picked up a couple of books today, just having people on the podcast.
Your last guest, I need to listen to that. He had some good ones.
Yeah, I wish I made more time for reading, but the audiobooks work well. I don't know what people did before audiobooks. I guess they read.
Yeah, with candlelight. It's you probably listen to music in the operating room.
Yeah,
we listen to in the clinic, in the OR, and so the last thing I want to do in the car is listen to music.
Right.
So
it's just to pass the time.
And then people don't have to know you listen to it. You can speak intelligently.
I was telling people earlier, I have a vernacular with some people that know I do a lot of audiobooks. If I say I'm in the middle of a book or I just finished it, that probably means I did the audio version. If I say I read this book, then I read it.
Yeah.
But if I don't use the word read, then it's probably the other one.
Well, remember, we're somewhere.
I experienced.
One of your kids was like, you said something about, I did this book, and they're like, you listened to it, Dad. Like, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
It's just a different sense.
That's right.
Sometimes I remember it just as much if I hear it.
Well, the self-help books, which usually have one point they repeat 10 times. If I want to take notes, then I read it. But most of them, especially biographies, they're stories.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Rufus. Stories is how we remember principles. It's why there's parables in the Bible. Like, hey, there's a truth here. Let me tell you a story. You remember the story.
Yep. And Bill O'Reilly and the guy that he writes books with are fantastic.
Killing Reagan,
the Killing
Kennedy.
season.
Yeah.
I mean, the Killing series. Excuse me. I think I've.
Do you have a Killing season? It's coming up. It's called hunting, deer hunting.
10-1.
No gun.
I think I've finished all on the Killing series.
The Killing Jesus one was really good too. The Lincoln, Reagan, I forget which.
JFK is phenomenal, and Reagan. JFK and Reagan were my favorites.
Yeah, he does a great job of that. I think the other guy writes most of it, but
he probably does.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can add Under the Knife to your listening queue too.
If I'm at a red light and there's nothing else to do, I might.
Maybe.
Did you always have interesting guests like this?
Always. The Taylor Tennysons in different spaces of the world.
I'm gonna move over Joe Rogan.
What's the next chapter of life look like for Taylor Tennyson?
God, man, we're getting deep.
Going deep.
I'm probably gonna run for governor in the next little bit.
Well, is it gonna be vote for TT?
Yeah. There's a lot you can
can't
do.
spell your last name.
No, I'll be like Madonna. I'm gonna drop the last name.
Just go
and
with Taylor.
Be Taylor.
Yeah.
Let's see what's in my. We are entering with my family. I think the travel era of our lives. Like my youngest is now 9, but she acts more like 19, and so
Tell them a story about Taylor
rolling.
Swift. The Taylor Swift.
You're gonna make me tell this story.
Yes, I am. It's a great.
All
story.
right. So my middle daughter she's awesome.
How old is she?
She is 12.
Okay.
And she is all my kids are awesome. This one is probably more like me than the other.
Does that
two.
make her more awesome?
I guess. At least to me. So she likes to think big.
Yeah.
So we are all together. We have both of my brothers and their families, my parents. We're all hanging out in False River one weekend. And she is talking to her cousins, and they want to see Taylor Swift. So I tell her, Riley, you got to plan ahead. These things sell out. So she gets on her phone, and she comes to the table, and she's like, I have great news. I found tickets. I'm like, really? When? It's July 9th, whatever, next summer. I said, fantastic. Where is it? Switzerland. I'm like, okay.
Is that north of Alexandria?
That's aiming big, baby. And she looks at me, and she's like, Dad, YOLO.
YOLO.
Just you only live once. And so if you don't say it, it might never happen.
That's right.
But if you take Riley's advice and keep saying it and pestering
then it
people,
will happen.
Then you have manifested a reality.
Yeah.
And so, this summer we're going to Switzerland.
Boom. YOLO.
It's win-win.
Well, I may have shared this with you, but I took my family on a great vacation this summer. We went to Monaco to the Grand Prix. And right before that, I had dinner with this guy, and he's pretty well off, and they were going to Costa Rica, but he had 11 people to take. Their kids had wives and stuff like this. And he goes, yeah, Craig, I just told my kids, look, this is all y'all's money. It's just whether or not I'm going to be there for it or not.
Absolutely.
And I actually told my kids, said, y'all going to get a smaller pile when I die. And I told my kids that, and you know what they said unequivocally, unanimous. We'd rather the vacations with y'all.
When you're not here, they're going to want memories of you.
Mm-hmm.
They want you back. They're not going to want
stuff,
a bank account.
Mm-mm.
And you got to ride that line between getting your children, providing for your kids, having fun, not spoiling them, but also you want them to have that drive that you had and that I had. And that it kind of concerns me sometimes because I did not grow up the way my kids are growing up, and that was a big part of me wanting to do what I do. Well,
I heard a quote once that a lot of men want to get rich and make lots of money so that their children won't have the problems that made men of their fathers. And it's hard to say no when you can say yes. But it's also hard. I think a lot of parents, especially the helicopter parents, they don't want their children to have any adversity. And if you don't have adversity, you're not going to climb.
Easy times create weak men.
Mm-hmm. So true.
And it looks like we're creating a lot of weak men. And women, and weak non-binaries.
They don't know if they're a man or not. So tell me about, and we gotta kind of land the plane here, I think, but.
No way. I'm just getting
2 more hours. No, so what do you think plastic surgery will be like in 10 years?
I think the next big thing in plastic surgery is going to be scar treatment. Okay? If you talk to people, one of the biggest drawbacks is that wherever you cut is going to be a scar. So we have techniques we can use to minimize it. We try to hide scars in nice locations, but if you look at studies in fetuses, they will induce, say, a cleft lip in a fetal pig or goat. Then they can, if you have in uterine surgery and repair that cleft lip, that animal is born without a scar. So there's scarless healing in utero. So how do you take that,
replicate the environment
to out? And it's all growth factors and cytokines, and I think we're due for a big medical breakthrough.
So do you think it has to do, I mean, when you and I were born, we didn't take our umbilical cord and freeze it for our very own stem cells. I think that's an option nowadays. Not everybody does it. There's a cost issue, but if we had our own stem cells to replicate and choose from, I think that's the closest thing to the in utero environment.
Right, and then it's just figuring out how to get that stem cell to be the kind of cell you want it to be.
How do you signal it to skin?
Yes, because what's a lot in when I was training, I think the last great medical advance we had is probably joint replacement.
Well, there have been 4 in orthopedics: the intramedullary nail, arthroscopy, locked plating, and the total joint replacement.
I mean, look at the change.
I think the next one will be in biologics. Mm-hmm. You know, people go, oh, what about stem cells? Well, it's got to be mesenchymal, placental, and it's not yours. Right. So how do you signal that? People think we can just inject a stem cell, now you don't have arthritis anymore. It just doesn't work that way.
But how awesome would that be?
Oh my gosh.
To inject a knee
and you're done.
Arthritis is gone and there's no cutting.
Well, I'll tell you, I've had 7 knee surgeries, as you know, and I probably need knee replacements, but I lost a bunch of weight, and also I do cryotherapy now in the oxygen chamber, and it's decreased the inflammatory response, I think. I feel better.
There is something to cold plunging,
yes,
for sure.
It's hard. It's painful. It works.
Yeah. Just ask Sean Connor.
Yeah.
And, I got to give a shout out.
Yeah.
This is off topic, but the best high school wide receiver in the state, for sure.
Como.
Yeah. You've heard of him?
Yeah.
He's fast.
He's going to Georgetown, right?
He is going to Georgetown.
Good for him.
He's going to probably have a little stint in the NFL after college, and then I'm sure he's going to be president one
Go
day.
Jack, go.
Go run.
Well, you could read a book about him, man.
I might write his autobiography.
Well, we can't wait to read the biography of Taylor Theunissen one day. Hopefully
we're only halfway through.
Exactly. Well, the best is yet to come. Thanks for being on.
Anytime.
We'll do it again sometime.
Appreciate it, Greg.
Thank you for joining us today, and a big thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to this surgical exploration of politics, healthcare, and life. I've been your host, Dr. Craig Green. Remember to stay informed, stay sharp, and join us next time to see which of life's topics we'll dissect under the knife.